I am definitely a start on time and on time type guy, but I'm also very understanding of transitioning campuses, end of day. You know how it goes at the end of the day. It's kind of like it can be super quiet or just like insanely busy. So we kind of usually start within that 5-minute window. One thing I do want to just make sure is super clear is just the kind of board policy requirements. And just if you really are technical and want to know like the exact like rhyme and reason for this type of committee and just kind of all the regulations that go behind it, we do have 3 policies that govern this committee, which is technically called the DEIC, which is our District Education Improvement Council. Some say education, some say educational. You'll see it both ways. And so the DEIC is the District Level Planning and Decision-Making Committee. So anything that is relevant to curriculum and instruction, student performance, professional development planning, academic calendar planning, anything to do with dropout prevention and kind of at-risk students, anything to do with technology, purchasing, and just improving effective instruction for teachers. All those topics, all those pieces will be discussed because they are requirements of this committee. And so as I said, all those topics, that essentially is kind of the quick year at a glance, where we'll probably take one of those topics and apply that to each of the meetings and let that be a focus. And then, of course, add other things that are relevant or meaningful, either because it's relevant to the topic, relevant to the time of the year, or just something that we want y'all's feedback about, and we're going to, come to you guys for that. And so anything that we do as a district will always be run through this committee first before it ever reaches a final approval stage. And so it's a great opportunity, and I'm really glad to see everybody here because obviously, as you know, this is year 3 with Mr. Van Maitre. And so this is another year where we're kind of about to cycle through another year over some of the initiatives that I'm sure many of you have already heard before, talking about the strategic plan and just technically where are we with that. And where are we trying to go as we are, right here in that year 2, year 3 stage of the strategic plan. And so that's going to be some of the topics, items, pieces that will kind of guide us throughout this year. Having said that, are there any questions just about why am I here as you're looking around, like, just making sure you're in the right place for the right reason? Okay. So I really, again, appreciate you guys being here, signing up, and giving your time to this committee and to what we'll do as far as the work is concerned for this school year. I know some of my holdovers from last year are wondering, what the heck, where's all the food, where are the snacks, where's the good stuff? And I'm sure, as you guys have already maybe have heard, we're in that little weird window where we can't quite do anything because we're not in last school year's fiscal year, and we're not technically in this current school year's fiscal year. It's like, I'm not sure if like business and finance has a term for it, but I call it like finance purgatory, where you're just kind of stuck, you can't do anything. And so this is that one opportunity where we get to experience that together, but that's why we're going to kind of be quick and make this painless for the first time. And then when you come back, that will obviously be when the fiscal year starts, so that will look more like normal when you come in. So I always encourage everybody, if you can, to get here a little early. One, because you get a nice spot, your own, to pick your own spot, and then of course there'll be food and drinks outside for you to get and make the meeting time together a little more pleasant, I suppose. So, having said that, from a show of hands, who was on the committee from last year? Okay. And obviously, show of hands, who was not on the committee from last year? Okay. Of those that are brand new, I'm going to just kind of like point to, I believe, I'm sorry, Ms. Booker, but I'm going to start with you. And I just want to real quickly have an introduction of our new members to the old members, and then we'll do it the other way. So,
I'm Genevieve Booker. I am the Director of Special Education in 504. And I'm totally new, so.
She's brand spanking new. All right, let's go to this table.
I'm Miss Monsivais. I'm a 3rd grade teacher at the intermediate. This is year 5 with TM, and I'm loving it.
Year 5 already? Wow.
beating the average. Dr. Chrisup, I'm at the middle school, 8th grade science. So second year with TM, but 26th year together.
26.
I am Rosario Garces. I am at the middle school. I do 8th grade inclusion, and I also do ESL. And this is my 3rd year.
Sarah, you do these.
Okay. My name is Denise. I'm here at the middle school. I am the Learning Lab teacher for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, and this is my 3rd year at TM.
I'm Lauren Southard. I'm a parent of a 7th grader and a 3rd grader, and I'm on my 3rd year in PTA, on the PTA board.
My name is Cesar Ponza. I'm a parent of a 3rd grader. I'm a registered nurse and a clinical director at Christa Shoreline. If you see me, it's usually not a good thing, but I'll be happy to help anybody.
I feel like we could do some good Shack DEIC crossover with our stakeholders. Also, glad to have you. So, Amber's table. No new? I'll say, I didn't even see you there, Ms. Griffin.
Okay, we're just doing
Veterans.
new?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm Carolyn Hatcher. I work in DAEP, which is the alternative placement for discipline. And I work mostly with middle schoolers, but also with high schoolers.
Dawn Jones, 8th grade, girl mom of a kid that does a lot of stuff.
Awesome. All right. Okay, now we've got to go to our old members.
So Linda Castro, this is year 11 at the primary, all kindergarten.
All kindergarten.
All kindergarten.
I like the way you
Call me
said that.
crazy, so.
I'm Becca Hernandez. I'm a 1st grade teacher, and it's my 4th year.
And
Jessica Hutler. I work at the primary. I'm one of the reading specialists. It's my 2nd year as reading specialist. I've also taught kinder and pre-K as well.
Awesome.
Ariana Granados, I am a math teacher at ACC, so just all math. This is my 3rd year with TM and as a teacher overall.
All but TM. All but TM.
My name is Ricardo Zavala. This is my 4th year here at TM. I'm also at ACC, kind of just do all the social studies there. And this is my 5th year overall teaching now, but 4th year at TM.
Sarah Luis, I'm at the intermediate. This is my 7th year of teaching. I teach 5th grade, science and social studies.
So a good split, interesting split.
Yes, was at the primary, now at the intermediate. My goal is to make something explode this year in a safe way. That was the fine print on the first day of school. I was like, we're gonna make something explode safely. But they just heard the first part.
Yeah, so I got so excited to call you this that
Yeah.
Was that whole table?
Yeah.
I'm Kelly Griffin. I'm an ag science teacher at the high school. I teach veterinary medicine. This is my 13th year at TM, 19th year overall.
So Amber Watkins, parent. I have a freshman and a 6th grader, both girls. Lord help me. So this is one of the many committees that I sit on in the district.
Just me.
Just you.
I'm Erica Ledesma. I teach at the intermediate 5th, oh my God, like what I teach? 5th grade, science and social studies, and we're both gonna explode something.
There'll be 2 holes in the room.
Makes for a big one.
And of course, let's see, Miss Salinas, can't forget you out there.
I'm Rosie Salinas. I'm the Director of Technology. And this is my, starting my 3rd year at Tolosa Midway, but my 29th year in education.
Wow. And she's also manning the recording station.
Yes, I'm recording.
This is where you wear multiple hats and as duties are assigned at the fine, if we're talking fine print, that's her fine print right here.
So now I'm on record saying I'm gonna make something.
We're going down, girl. We're both going down together.
one of the little rules of being in the boardroom, we're always like, is it green or red? Green or red? Green or red? So when it's
You could have
green,
told us.
I know.
so he says the old member. Like,
In the
We
back,
recorded
I knew
before?
that.
of course.
Yeah, I was watching it this afternoon.
Yes, ma'am.
I saw
What's-
y'all
gosh,
eating.
how embarrassing.
What's
Go.
awesome to hear though,
Yeah, go
like
back.
when we take all this time to record, because we record SHAC, we record these meetings, we do the academic calendar committee meetings, any type of committee meeting, we always record. And it's like, gosh, I really hope all the effort and time we do to like set it up, to make sure it's working right, to post it, to clean it up, that it's actually something that people are watching. And I'm actually kind of surprised by just how many people actually take the time to watch them, which is great. Like, that's the reason why we post them, is for anybody to check that out. So I'm glad to hear that we do have some that just, check that stuff out.
I guess I was getting snacks that day and I was late. I must have missed that, but hey.
The snacks must have been really good that day.
Most of the snacks are a problem.
And so I won't forget myself, I'll do an introduction. So I'm John White, I'm the committee chairperson. This is my 4th year in the district, in the role that I'm in, Assistant Superintendent for Instructional Services. This is my 15th year overall. Just to kind of break that 15 years down, I taught for 5 years, and then from there I became an administrator, did 3 years, did 2 years as an assistant principal, 1 year as a dean of instruction, then moved into principalship, spent about 3 years, 1 year at a middle school, 2 years at a high school, and then came here, where I started as the assistant superintendent. Before we hired Gabe Alvarado, I was the interim principal prior to him coming and relieving me of that duty so I could come over here and be full-time. And so I say 4 years, and it truly feels like I just got here yesterday. So I can understand when you say 3 years or 4 years, it tends to go by faster and faster, right? And if you think about the school year in particular, we're about to finish week 7 with students. That's like remarkable when you think about it. And so hopefully as we're thinking about the school year, and if you're thinking about from last year, some of the conversations about just the academic calendar, moving from 6 weeks grading period to 9 weeks, knowing that this year is our first year on a 9-week cycle, those will be some things that we kind of periodically touch base on throughout the year for feedback, and just to kind of get a gauge as far as is this going kind of what you thought maybe it would look like, making that switch, or are you one of those that are really like looking back at, gosh, I really missed 6 weeks. Just using that as an example, but just knowing that part of what we're doing as a district, trying to move forward and really bring about, very innovative programming, and just trying to be very, very much 21st century. And of course, trying to align those efforts as we are also in the midst of a bond referendum, and just in the stages of construction and planning for the new middle school. There's just a lot of great things happening in the district. And so, like I said, this is a great year to be a part of this committee, because you get kind of first insight into all those things that we're kind of talking about, but also you get to kind of advise and provide really constructive feedback on how that process is going. And if, depending on feedback or just what this committee is kind of wanting to do as a whole, we can make decisions or change courses based on that. And so this is a great year to be a part of this, like I said. And so as we move throughout this committee this year, if there is a topic that's kind of burning but hasn't quite made its way on the agenda or just hasn't been discussed yet, feel free to reach out or let me know if there's something that's really pressing that you all want to discuss. I'm always open to feedback in that way, where there's really something that we want to talk about because it may be unique or just something that's happening. Definitely this is the committee to raise that topic or raise that question to. Okay? And so just wanted to make sure as we introduce ourselves and kind of just get to know each other a little bit more, since we'll be spending a few minutes together this year. Like I said, the policies are here to kind of help you better understand if you want to, spend your wee hours, or if you wake up in the middle of the night and can't go back to bed, you can read these policies. They will probably make you go back to bed. So at least they can do that one thing. Membership is here, as well as our meeting dates. And then just real quickly on kind of just some of the few items, 9% attendance. If you do read the policy, you'll find that that is a requirement in the policy. I really appreciate those that have already communicated to me certain things about possibly being late or needing to leave early. No big deal. Like, no, don't sweat the small stuff. But if you are knowing that you're going to be out or maybe several days or several meetings you won't be able to attend, that's okay too. Just do your absolute best to let me know in advance so that we can kind of just plan accordingly. When it comes to the state of the district, that is something that we do now as a district, more so than we've ever done before now that with Mr. Van Matry being here. We kind of try to each year to elevate the experience and just the overall showcasing of the district. And in particular this year, the keynote speaker is going to be the TA Commissioner, Mike Morath. And so I can't think of a better keynote speaker than the actual commissioner himself. But that's kind of what we're trying to do as far as just bringing a nice spotlight and attention to our district in the best ways that we know how to do that. And so that's just a really great event that, like I said, showcases, highlights all the great things that are happening in the district. For instance, as we talk a little bit more about the strategic plan, which is posted on the website, and just kind of everything we're doing will always tie back to that. And so if you haven't had a chance to really look at the plan, I truly encourage you to look at it in its entirety, just so that you're kind of aware of kind of how it got created, why it got created, and how we use it as a district administration team for our planning and for our decision making and for the things that we're trying to do. Everything that we do always ties back and aligns to this document. And so I won't, go into too much more detail about it because it is, specific and a little long, but it's got some really great information. And it really just kind of helps tie all maybe of the loose ends together as far as why we're doing the things that we're doing. And so, go back. If you're like me and you like to read things that are smaller, shorter, and not as long, this is another great document here where it summarizes the actual plan. And 2 nice pages. And you can see our new vision, our new mission, our core values, and some of the key terms that we're really trying to focus on. And then, of course, our strategic priorities, which are components of our goals here. And if you have been a lucky someone to either participate in a school board meeting or attend one, each board meeting, we always present over one of the district goals. At the last board meeting, we have made its way through our full cycle of our 6 goals, and we're back on goal 1, which we did last month, which is our graduate readiness profile, and that's being led by Mrs. Kenna Moody, our Assistant Director for Curriculum and Instruction. So if you see her on campus, or if she's talking this acronym GRP, that's the graduate readiness profile. And so that is kind of I would consider our kind of capstone product of the strategic plan, where ultimately in the year 5, we will have students ready to kind of meet those graduate readiness profile requirements. And so once that takes shape and really kind of catches fire, everything that we will do as a district will always tie back to that GRP. And that will kind of help align everybody K through 12, while also creating seamless transitions from campus to campus, while focusing on very, very specific skills that are aligned to the college and career readiness model that is also known as our CCMR, our college, career, and military readiness kind of indicator, if you will. And so I know I said a lot right there, and maybe a whole bunch of stuff I said like kind of went over the head, but no worries. I will say it about 1,000 times in here, and then eventually it's all going to make perfect sense. As I try to figure out. So if I hit escape and it worked last time, what do I do when it doesn't work this time?
Control. Hit it harder.
Say, Control, delete, shut down completely?
No, it won't shut it down.
F11 will get you on a full screen usually.
Yeah, there it is, that F11.
There you go.
Awesome.
There you go.
Okay, and so 1 through 6 is just very, very short bullet points about what those actual goals are. You can see we have a focus at the pre-K level. They focus on intervention. They focus on SPED programming, stakeholder satisfaction, which is being captured in the form of a faculty and staff survey, which we completed for the first time last school year. And then, of course, safety and security, primarily focused on improving our facilities. In addition to the strategic plan, just wanted to kind of highlight some key curriculum and instruction initiatives. Again, none of these are new, but this is that year where we're kind of taking another step in that direction where we're going to kind of become more intentional, flesh things further out, and just become more transparent with our process when it comes to those initiatives. And so I'll skip the first one because that's kind of our biggie for this year. The second one, HQIM, that was a big focus in last year's committee because that was our real first year of starting that work. Now that we've had another year at the primary and intermediate and middle school levels with math and RLA being the high quality instructional material focus, I'm really curious to learn this year, do we truly feel that HQIM is the way to go? Is it working? Is what we're offering in terms of the support and professional development to make sure you guys are doing well with that curriculum, is that being effective? Or is it all just kind of, a good try, good effort, but it's not quite what we thought it was going to be? So that's going to be something that we just periodically check in on throughout this year, knowing just how crucial that is to kind of just all the things that we're trying to do as far as teaching and learning is concerned. LASSO math implementation, that is one of the grants that the C&I department applies for every year. And fortunately, we've been granted monies every year, and that money is used to help support HQIM, teaching and learning when it comes to math. We are going to, this year in October, apply for the reading, the RLA version of LASSO. And so we're hoping for next year that we'll have LASSO money support for both math and RLA, which would be tremendous for us if that happens. So fingers crossed. The next thing is Warpath Academy. As you all know, and hopefully got a chance to see on email today, we had our ribbon cutting grand opening last night for our new cosmetology program, which I'll think of the pictures if you weren't able to be there in person.
It was really nice.
Yeah, so it's one of those, the pictures are really nice, but when you see it in person, it like takes your breath away. Oh yeah, it's extremely impressive. And so one of the things I can say about just that experience and how we were able to make that happen was through that big check right there, which says Texas Workforce Solutions. That is our Job and Education for Texas grant, also known as JET. And we applied for that about a couple years ago, and we kept our fingers crossed the whole time, and the state gave us a bunch of money. And so that was great. And part of how we used that money was to build that cosmetology lab. And so you can kind of see just how that money was spent and what it ended up looking like. And I'll be honest, it was the first time I can say where everything went the way it was supposed to. None of the building renovation, none of the kind of construction phase, it all went exactly according to plan. Nothing got lost, stolen, broken, damaged. It was just a really good experience. And to see it all kind of come to the helm last night with the students and everything kind of just, nice, shiny, sparkly, and brand spanking new, it was just a really great experience to be able to do that for our kids. And so that's kind of what we're here to do, is to provide those opportunities, not just opportunities, but real opportunity where our students not only know how much we care because we're here to invest and to do everything we possibly can for them, but also to ensure that whatever it is that we're doing for them, it's going to do as much for everybody that it can, while providing them every opportunity as they graduate from TM with either a license or a certificate or some pathway to where they can immediately enter the workforce of their choosing. And so that's what our program will do for our kids. Our cosmetology program will allow our students to graduate with a license and certificate to where they can go straight into a salon or a barbershop or some sort of aesthetic, career pathway that will allow them to start immediately. And I just think that's a really incredible opportunity that we can do for our kids because we're the only district in the region able to do that right now. And so you can kind of just see just how specialized, but also just unique, but also just how fitting, because the program can only fit 25 students, and the interest is like insane with the reach and the phone calls and just asking and inquiring. And we're talking about people that live like a couple hundred miles away, wanting to know, what is this program? How can I get more information? Is it a lottery? Is it an application? Like, we just are getting bunches of calls about just what we're doing here and how we're doing it, and if we can be a part of it, especially if it's a parent calling. And so just think that's really great, because like I said, as we kind of gear up for our State of the District kind of event next month, that will be one thing that obviously we'll want to make sure we highlight. When it comes to DLI, or dual language instruction, that's happening at the primary and intermediate levels. That's our new program where we will be teaching in both English and Spanish to our students. It's a really nice program. I'm extremely impressed with our staff who are a part of that program, and that have really just jumped on and in and just been about it ever since it first started. Do we have anybody here that's DLI?
I think I'm starting tomorrow.
You think you're starting tomorrow, Ms. Huerta?
I just found out.
Do you want to say any few things about DLI, or just what you know about it?
I don't know about here, just what I know about in the past is that the students are transitioned. They start at an early age by percentage, so it's usually 80-20. And then from there, as they increase in the grade levels, it becomes more, in other words, students are getting basically exposed to both languages. So their Spanish-speaking students are getting some English, and the English are getting some Spanish. So it's kind of helping both be bilingual, I guess you can say.
Yep.
It's the easiest way to sum it up.
Yep. So it's all about just trying to help our students become bilingual. So they'll be taught in both English and Spanish, and there's rotations, and it's all based on percentages and splits, and it's really nice because it's supposed to equal out as far as like a 50-50 split. And of course, it starts a little heavy based on the dominant language of the student, about 80-20. And then
I think it starts with their, like the social studies, I think, and then it goes into the math, and then it goes kind of.
It's prescriptive and it's intentional, and the research has proven that those students that are part of that program, if they are successful and can stay at least through grade 5, they end up being like in the top 25% of their class. Their SAT, ACT scores are in the top 25%. All of the performance indicators for those students are in the top tier, just because they were in that program, nothing else. And so there's a lot of exposure and immersion that happened during that time period. If you know a little bit more about early child development and the psychology behind all that, there's just so much happening where there are windows of opportunities to acquire language and acquire critical thinking in different ways, where language really helps support and press the issue with our students. And so we're really hoping in a long-term sense where we kind of have that program stabilized, and we have several cohorts moving through our campuses and grade levels, that our performance and those students' performances, whether it's captured through STAR, ACT, SAT, CCMR, or even in scholarships, that we can kind of start seeing those benefits for those students because of their enrollment in the dual language instruction program. When it comes to another one, optional flexible school day program, maybe you're not as familiar with this one, but this is our brand new one that we added last year that is kind of at ACC currently, but also at high school. At high school, it's known as Compass. And this is an opportunity for students that may be struggling with their attendance or possibly struggling with school because of their at-risk status. This is another opportunity for those students where if it makes better sense for us to create a more flexible day for those students for whatever reason it may be, if it's because they have a job, if it's because maybe their home life is a little difficult and it's challenging to get to school, that program allows us to do different types of things, flexible and just kind of just, I guess the word really is flexible. It truly creates a flexible day where the student is no longer bound by the day and the attendance of the day, where, as we all know, that ADA time, that second period or that 10 o'clock time period, if we don't capture the student there, then the state technically looks at that student as being absent for the whole day, even if they were there for every other minute, every other period. But if they're not in that snapshot window caught, the state technically sees them as absent. And so that really hurts students that may be eligible for OFSDP, because they may not be able to be there every day, or there might be some conflicts with their schedule preventing them from being there every day. So the OFSD program allows us to now count students for minutes rather than by the day. And so we create their schedules based on minutes per week. And as long as they are meeting the minutes that we have set for them, the days can look like anything that they need to. It can be flexed in, flexed out. We can do hybrid schedules. We can do start late, end early. We can do just about anything we need to do to accommodate that student in order to make sure that they are still getting everything that they are supposed to get, because we're not reducing any of the instructional requirements or the graduation requirements. We're just flexing the schedule differently so that they can go about getting those same things. And so since we do have a couple ACC teachers here, do you all have anything you'd like to say about it?
It really helps, especially with our students who, like Dr. White mentioned, that maybe they don't have the best home life support, and maybe school was an issue getting here by 10 a.m. And that really helps for attendance in totality, in the sense of we can make it to where there's the allotted time you need to be here per week. As long as you meet this metric, you are going to be good as far as the district's accountability when it comes to attendance.
Yeah, because as we know, attendance is a requirement. And it's like, how can you require something if there are so many barriers or roadblocks in the way of that student, right? The OFSD program allows us to remove those barriers for those students. The last thing I want to make sure we're aware of, because eventually you'll be hearing a little bit more about this as the year goes on, PEIMS. So PEIMS is how we capture student information and data. And part of a district requirement is to submit our student information and data throughout the school year to TEA. And they validate our data, they review it, they use it to help us with, or to determine our funding. They use it to determine a whole bunch of things, right? Like we always say, like, data is so crucial, because at the end of the day, what is going to be reviewed or analyzed by someone to determine, good, bad, yes, no, high, low, those types of metrics, those ratings. And so PEIMS does that for us. The CAP that you see there, that stands for Corrective Action Plan. And so when you hear something like CAP, I always cringe, because I'm like, oh God, that's not good. Because when you hear Corrective Action Plan, that obviously means something needs to be fixed because something was broken. And so part of the CAP requirement for the district is correcting some of the issues we've had with PEIMS over the last 4 to 5 years. I won't get into too many of the details, but we've had some reporting issues as a district that we have already been known about, and we've already actually kind of fixed. And so this CAP plan that we're under for this year and for next year is just to monitor, to make sure that we are continuing to do the things we're supposed to do. And if there is a need for TA to provide support to us, or to just make sure that our data is valid and accurate, that's what that kind of CAP plan is intended to do, is to provide us with support to ensure the fidelity of our data moving forward. Okay, a couple things here. Since I didn't talk teacher incentive allotment, I'll say that real quick. Teacher incentive allotment is going to be a really big deal this year. And so I say that because if you've been here since when we first rolled it out in year 1, this is our year 3, meaning we got through year 1, which means our application was accepted. Year 2 was last year. That was our data capture year. That was the year where we were real intentional about doing observations, making sure we were intentional and purposeful, having conversations with our teachers when it came to T-test and providing feedback as part of that evaluation component, and making sure that the student growth measure, if depending on which grade level and content you teach, making sure that all that data is being compiled so that in this year, year 3, and then next month, which we will be September, all that data that you guys did with your appraiser last year is being reconciled currently by C&I, where in the next few weeks, we will then be able to start determining who was going to be on the list for designation and who won't, okay? So that work is currently being done. It'll be pretty much finished within the next month. So by about mid-September, once we have everything finalized and we've verified and validated that data to be accurate, we are going to start having teacher phase group meetings, and that will be done by phase group. And when I say phase group, I mean phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. So hopefully when I say that, hopefully some idea of what I mean is coming to you. Does anybody not have a clue what I mean when I say phase 1, phase 2, phase 3? Okay, I'm gonna assume nobody knows, so I'm just gonna. Oh, here we go.
Oh. And they allot to the first group of teachers, correct, the first grade level, and then phase 2 is like the next group of teachers that would get the allotment?
The different levels?
Yeah, so in a sense, what we've done is in order to make teacher incentive allotment, well, first of all, making sure that we get accepted and approved, because you still have to make sure you do all these things that they're wanting you to do get pushed through and fully approved so that the money will come. To do that, you can't do everybody at once based on just the content, the way you teach, if you're at primary versus high school. So what we did as a district was we had a steering committee created that helped us divide and split out the teachers into phases or groups. So our phase 1 group is this group right here.
It starts like at the lower grade levels,
It's
right?
pre-K, kinder.
Yep.
Grades 1 and 3.
Yeah. Actually, I'll do it like this. Okay. So what you're looking at is our teacher incentive allotment handbook. We do have a handbook. You're probably wondering, I've never seen this, or I never knew about this. That's because we haven't published it yet. This will be published when we start having those phase group meetings. And so this is going to be released and published on the website. This handbook will explain everything related to teacher incentive allotment, how everything works, how the money works, how the timelines work, where you fit, and how that will impact you and what maybe you need to start doing to kind of gear up and get ready for a teacher incentive allotment. Our phase 1 group are these teachers right here. And you can see that they are not all going to be evaluated on the same growth target or growth measure. Okay? So some might be on STAR, some might be on NWA MAP, and then of course, because Circle is required at pre-K and TextKia is required at kinder, we won't make those teachers do another test. We will just use that required test as that growth measure. And so if you want to consider the NWA, the TextKia, the Circle as that grade level STAR, kind of like their Super Bowl test, that's kind of what it is. And that's the measure that will be used to determine if that teacher is meeting the student growth measure requirement. And then that will then be combined with your teacher evaluation rating, your observation rating. And those two data points will merge. And then that will help us determine if that teacher will become eligible for that designation or not.
So kinder will be divided into phase 1 and 2?
Yes. So that's a great question. You see kinder here. In our first phase, we're only focusing on the RLA piece. In the second phase, it'll be math. That means after both RLA and math, that data is captured for that year, that teacher will have 2 opportunities to get designated. So it's almost like you have more opportunity because you'll have the students twice. Well, yes, that's very, very exciting, right? And that's what we're trying to do as far as moving it all the way through, where if you're a teacher of social studies, science, eventually you will be able to get both those because all that will be added. It may not be right now, but it's going to be added. If not this year, it'll be next year. And so in 2 years' time, assuming everything continues to go as it's going, which is great, everybody will probably have that opportunity where if you are a split teacher, or if you're a co-teacher, or if you're kind of a hybrid teacher moving from different grade levels or contents, you'll have those opportunities everywhere. And so obviously the way we start is kind of start small and start easy. That way we know we're doing it the right way and we're getting approved and accepted by the state and by Texas Tech University, who is partnered with the state that does our data validation. It's just really critical that we don't do too much or bite off too much too soon, because if we don't get approved, then we're denied, and then we have to kind of like go back to the beginning of the line and do it all over again. And that means those 2 years that we've spent already will have to be repeated. And we really don't want that, because the key is, as long as we're approved, we will remain approved forever, as long as we can just get approved. But because we're not quite approved yet, we have 1 month to go. That is the goal. So phase one group is going to determine if we are not only approved as a full system with the state. At that point, if we are, then those teachers that are eligible for designation, they will get paid out this time next year. Questions?
Well, just a quick statement.
Yeah.
On when I tried to click on, and we tried to click on the TIA handbook.
Yeah, you're not going to be able to see it.
Request access.
That's right.
Did you already say that?
Yeah,
Okay.
I already said that.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I missed it just in everything else.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's okay. This is like, I'm just giving
So
y'all
this
like
is just
a sneak peek.
The sneak
almost.
peek, okay.
So yes,
And then,
go ahead.
and so when it says, like on phase two, so only the teachers that were listed in phase one their data was captured last year.
Correct.
Right, but it's for processing for this year.
Correct.
And, okay, and then the teachers that are gonna get captured in phase two, that's data captured this year.
Correct.
And so when it says something like STAR EOC Science, that's all the grade levels for that, or is that just,
Just those subjects that teach STAR EOC.
so only high school?
No.
So not,
Eighth grade.
Eighth grade.
okay, so STAR Science, 8th grade, and EOC Science, but what about 5th grade science?
Yes, so any STAR EOC.
In fifth grade.
So 5th, 8th, biology.
Oh, okay, all right, and the same for social studies?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
All right, in
So-
addition to the other four, okay.
So essentially, our phase one is our half of our STAR EOC, if you want to think about it like that. Phase two is the other half. So by the end of this year, anybody that teaches STAR EOC will be in contention for designation in that next year.
But the only two measures that are factored in are the teacher's formal evaluation and the student's growth on STAR.
Correct, if you are a STAR EOC teacher.
And the growth is worth more of a percentage than the T-tests.
Correct. So as a district, we prioritize the student growth over the teacher observation rating, because we want to make sure that the weight is there on the student's performance. So it's a 60-40 split with that.
She has a really good question.
Yeah?
I'm like, pressure now. Did I word it right?
I hope I give a really good answer.
So you said that, like kinder, for instance, it's split.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to make my problems everyone's, but like I taught 5th grade math last year.
Yeah.
This year I'm science and social studies.
Yeah.
So does that mean that the allotment, if I'm designated, will be split up between it? Or is it like
It just
in
means-
addition?
It just means that they're all in separate years. So like think about it in just that 1 year. What did I do in that 1 year? So if you were math last year, that's gonna be what let's assume you got designated. You learn in the next month or two, everything checks out, you're good to go for what you did in math. Around this time next year, you will be paid out for what you did in that math class, okay, or that math assignment. What you're doing now will be captured as part of phase two, and then that will just be that recursive loop where what you did then will be paid out the following year. And what you're doing in the current year can only help you increase your designation, because once you're designated, you can't have that, nobody can take that away from you. It's a 5-year designation. So if you go, let's say you have a really stellar year, you knock it out of the park, you kill it, and you become designated for 5 years. let's say you did what you needed to do and you coast and you're content and all of a sudden all your stuff just starts like plummeting. You cannot lose your designation based on the next year being less good or less effective. It just means you will only be at that designation level of what you initially earned. However, I encourage you to continue to push, and if you're only at that like satisfactory level and you want to be more at that mastery level, continue to push yourself because you can't increase your designation year to year. You just can't lose the designation.
For 5 years.
For 5 years.
And if you go to a different district, it still carries as long as it's
An eligible district.
yes, an eligible district.
It has to be an eligible district, but it also, that's a great question because this is where things start getting a little tricky. Because if you were to leave here, we have rules in place that require you to be here for a year afterwards in order to be paid out. It is good, right? And so those are some of the little rules that we will explain to everybody next month to make sure everybody understands how this works, because obviously you have to read the fine print. I feel like that's the theme of today's meeting, is make sure you read the fine print, because you know how all this works, but every district has little rules and they might be a little different based on the district or that plan. And no two districts create their plan the same. But one of the ways that we are wanting to recruit and retain teachers is by saying that if you want to be paid out, you have to remain here through the next year as that teacher of record in order to receive payment. That's just the rule that we've written now. That doesn't mean it may not eventually change or be edited or adjusted, but that's where we kind of currently are. And that's just to encourage you to stay in order to receive that money. And that's part of how we're wanting to support our recruitment and retention of teachers. Most districts have that, by the way. Okay?
Because I have a friend who got the master teacher and then she got designated that at West Oso, and then now she's in Mathis, but she's still getting that. But I think as soon as she got it, she left.
Yeah.
But I guess they didn't have that.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Maybe she went to a place where that rule wasn't in place, but just know that here it is. And so if that is something that you're going to be faced with or wanting to do, just make sure you ask all the right questions and you do your due diligence to make sure how any decision you make may have an impact on you and your unique situation.
I have a quick question. So when it comes to like phase 2, and it says pre-test, post-test, is that interim testing and STAR or post?
No, pre-post test means how the measure is taken. And so as we know with STAR, it's kind of prior year and what you're doing in that current year. And so the pre-post test for STAR is essentially how did that student do on the last test and how are they doing on the current test and what's the difference?
But those growth measures can't, like for science, fifth grade covers
Oh, yeah,
teach from
okay, so-
third, fourth,
This
and
is the
fifth.
DOY
And they
that's-
don't have
Yeah,
we
let me
don't
answer
take
that
it
one.
again.
Let me answer that
Yeah.
one for you. So
So-
the BOY and EOY for STAR, like grade 5, because if we know science, it goes grade
Grade
5, grade 8, biology. So 5th, 8th, 9th. 8th to 9th isn't even as necessarily a fair comparison because 8th grade science is nothing like biology, right? And so the way around that is instead of using that as the pre-post, we will do a district created closing the gap where at the beginning of the year, just as you would see at primary or intermediate that they do BOY, NWA MAP testing, STAR EOC will also do a BOY kind of test. And so that test will then become the measure at the end when that student does take that actual STAR test of that grade level, and that will be the comparison.
Because they're about to do that at the high school for English 2, US History, and Biology.
Yeah, we've already done.
Yep, and so that is the work that's being done this year that will be new and different from what we did last year.
And the scores we just did.
And that is just what we are currently doing. That doesn't mean that those things may not be adjusted as we move forward, because every year we're allowed to either expand or modify our application. And so one thing I will be kind of periodically checking in with this group is TIA. and just how is that working? Or do we need to adjust maybe a rule? Or this is unfair, let's look at this to make it more fair. A lot of that work will also occur in this committee as well.
Sorry, I don't want to beat a dead horse here. So for
Let's beat it though, let's do it.
For that same phase two, so like if we are going to be doing BOE, for phase two, this would be like the beginning of the data capture year.
Correct, this is your data capture.
So when would that BOE even be taking place?
It takes place in the first 9 weeks.
Okay, but it's because ACC, our class, we test at the beginning, so it's like our 9 weeks are a lot different. So it's like
it's different for y'all.
We would be at the middle of the semester pretty much.
It's different for you guys, so. Any other questions? Anything else that wants to be addressed? Because if not, hold your peace, and then we'll talk about it more next time.
He does not tell us.
Yeah. Speak it.
So what grade levels are those, is that for science and social studies?
That's STAR EOC, grade 5, grade 8 biology. And then US history would be the 8th and the US.
As a measurement.
As your measurement.
And then the following year, we will add everything else. But that's where it gets really challenging because those subjects that are non-STAR or don't have a required assessment, as a district, we have to create those measures. Where,
project or
yes, like a project or portfolio or even our own kind of standardized exam, if you will. And so that's really challenging because part of that work means those tests have to be rigorous, they have to be valid, and they can't provide any skew or favoritism when we do submit that data because that's part of the validation check that the state and Texas Tech University will do is to ensure fidelity, rigor, and consistency throughout all what we do. And if we have even one content with a super easy measure compared to how we are measuring everybody else, that will get flagged in the system and they will kick it back to us. And that would not be very good, which is why we're leaving those real challenging ones to the end, because we're hoping by the time we do get there, something will be in place. Or we will know that this district's been doing it a while and we're going to steal everything from them because they're doing such a great job and we will kind of adapt it for us. And so that's kind of currently our plan is to make that work easier, not super difficult or challenging, because that is the challenge. We'd have to create a measure for all those areas, and that's a lot of work.
What letter is TM on?
We are cohort F.
Cohort F?
And we say right now, being an F of it, there's G, H, and then what comes after H? I? I think it's I, but I think they're not calling it I because I is confusing. I think it's L. I think they're going with L instead. But you can see like, okay, cohort F, like, so that means there was an A, B, C, D, E, right? So there were 5 years prior to where we could have already been a part of this, but we just never got there. But here we are, right? Cohort F, already 3 years in, and it's one of those better late than nevers, but if you can believe it, there are still so many districts not even in the conversation with this. So it's great that y'all are here and a part of it, because not only do you get to kind of experience how it gets rolled out and hopefully maybe provide some influence or some feedback that can kind of help guide the process, but just to know that you're in a place that's prioritizing these types of initiatives because we care about trying to get you guys as much money as we can, knowing how hard you all work and what you do every day for our students. This is just one way that as a district, C&I and all the people that are responsible for putting all this together, this is the work we do after hours, on the weekends, whenever we can get a minute to look at this stuff, because this stuff is very tedious, very time consuming, and it's very challenging. You can't do this in the midst of 5,000 things happening. You really have to have a undivided attention and focus on this, which is why C&I is just so excited about the intercession coming up. Because we get to spend all the time in the world together finishing up the phase 1 data analysis. And so you all will know more about what that will look like after intercession, and we will then schedule meetings to kind of go over that with you all based on the phase group that you're in. If you're in phase 1, that's going to be kind of a crucial meeting. I would encourage you not to miss it if you are a phase 1 teacher. Phase 2, it'll be the same conversation, but just a year removed, where we'll talk to them about the beginning of this and the data capture year and how that works and kind of the timelines and things that they have to be aware of, and some of the things that we've learned from last year. Okay, and so that's kind of the goal for the next couple months, is to help teachers at their level understand how this works. Because what we've done the last couple months is spending our time at the administrator level, helping our principals and directors better understand how teachers' allotment works.
I have a question.
Yep.
Is it through TEA or where, through the cohorts, is it possible to find out what other districts are in the previous cohort, so that, like you were saying, you know, like how are they measuring? Because I know ideally it would be like a rubric for those sub-content areas that you can't be testing. So I'm wondering if, I'm just curious.
Oh, yeah. It's all very transparent on TIA's website.
It's on their website.
TA has its own TIA website. So if you want to go through cohorts, funding maps, spending plans, you can access just about anything and everything that you want there.
I was more curious about just the other districts that were in before us, so that should it ever come down to it, we can look and see what they're doing.
Of course.
One question.
Yep.
For the teachers that are in phase one, will they be notified that their information is submitted next month?
Of course. Everything will be communicated as soon as we know what we're communicating. And so if you hadn't had a chance to kind of look at the numbers, here's kind of what our average allotment looks like. These numbers are adjusted every year because it is all based on student enrollment and our demographics. But you can kind of get a sense of what we look like currently in our initial cohort F snapshot. So if you received a recognized designation, you can anticipate kind of receiving that amount of payout. But it will be different based on the teacher, because it's all about what students you grew and how, like, what was their demographic makeup. Teacher incentive allotment prioritizes eco-dis status. So if a student is economically disadvantaged, they're going to carry more weight, because the state tells us that due to their circumstance, it is more challenging and difficult to grow an eco-dis student than it is a non-eco-dis student. And so if you think about it, if you're at a Title I 100% eco-dis campus, many of which you see kind of in the urban, bigger city areas, obviously those are challenging, difficult to teach at schools. But if you are there and you're a TIA teacher and you get designated, you will kind of receive the reward in that money because of the 100% eco-dis status of that campus. You would probably get a recognized number that would be almost double or triple that amount. And so when you say West Oso, that's one of the campuses or districts that has a much higher eco-dis status. So their payouts to their teachers will be more than our payouts will be, because our eco-dis status is around 60, 65%. I don't want to say it's super high. It's not super low either. It's kind of just in that mid-tier. And that kind of is reflective of why our kids are so great, right? So it's one of those all in balance, because you really have to understand what it's like to work at a Title I 100% eco-dis campus. If you haven't seen what that's like, or been a part of that or taught there, and all you know is TM, it's one of those, if you're going after the money, just be careful what you wish for. Because I hope it was worth it to earn that money, because you'll have felt every penny by the time hopefully you do make it to that point where you are designated, but you'll feel every penny. Whereas here, to me, it's about balance in the experience, where you can still teach, be rewarded, and get designated, but not lose your mind or feel like you need to question your existence every day, because, you know, it's challenging to teach in some places. And so I can say that because I've worked in both Dallas ISD and Houston ISD, and it's just a different world, y'all. It is a different world when you work in a district like that. So I can only assume if you worked in Corpus Christi, perhaps even like a West Oso, or just, you know, more rural, more economically disadvantaged, less money, the challenges they go up exponentially. Yes, ma'am.
Is that allotment per year, or is that over the 5 years?
Per year. Per year.
And that's the average. So, like, what is it per campus, or where can we find, like, per campus?
It's hard to say per campus, because it just kind of is. It really takes it more based on a district overall, because it's really about just the overall enrollment, and they kind of give you a projection.
Yeah.
And then if you drill it down to the campus, each campus is a bit different in its makeup. So if you think about ACC versus like high school. High school by the state is categorized as a suburban type school setting. It's not rural, it's not urban. Whereas ACC, for instance, that's a rural campus. And based on TIA rules, rural will receive more money than a suburban because rural implies that you are more remote, less close to resources and amenities, where in that sense, it's supposed to be more of a challenge teaching in a rural district than it is in a suburban where you have greater access, more resources, that type of thing. And so even though we're all in the same district, ACC will have a bit of a more designation allotment based on just that rural status, but also to know that because they don't have as many students, their opportunities for getting growth measure or just meeting that threshold is super challenging because if you only are teaching 10 or 15 students, you have to have 8 of your 15 meet the growth measure in order to be eligible. If you are below that 50%, it's basically like you just stop right there and we'll try again next year, okay? So it's almost like you really do need to know the rules because if I'm a teacher, I want my number, how many students I'm teaching, and my content to be as high as possible because that gives me a greater probability of meeting that threshold. If I have 5 kids, I've got to have 3 of them pass. And if you have 4 where you know right out the bat, you already know they're not going to pass, you're kind of dead in the water already. And so that's kind of just how that particular percentage works as far as student growth measure is concerned. Does that all make sense? So it's kind of a give and take, right? More money means more challenging students, more difficult circumstances to teach in, and so you get reward for that. And that's kind of the whole point of TIA, is to try to help teachers be at those difficult to teach schools where they're super effective but don't want to leave because they're being rewarded for the work that they're doing. So, do we have any other questions or anything like that? Hopefully that helps a little bit. I know I probably spent way too much more time on that, but I know when it comes to TIA and that money, y'all want to know, and I want you all to know too, so I appreciate the questions because they were really good questions. One of the things that will come about when we are done with the phase group meetings is a Q&A document where once all this information gets relayed and everyone starts kind of trying to figure out how it works and applies to them, we are going to capture every single question that gets asked in order to kind of create that document so that everybody's aware of what those questions are, the answers to those questions, and just, again, another resource and support to the handbook so that you have full access to everything to understand exactly how this works. Real quickly, moving down here to ESSA Consolidated Application, I just want to make sure everyone's aware that part of the district, being a Title I district, is we do receive federal money, meaning it comes in the form of ESSA, which is the new way of like the Educational Student Success Act. They give it to us in 3 different buckets or allotments. Comes in Title I, which is for teachers and improving just overall instructional programming. Title II is all about improving effective instruction, whether that's support, training, contracted services, consultants, any type of growth and developing teachers. That's what Title II does. And then Title IV, we are kind of using that new this year. Whereas in prior years, we would kind of say, we want Title IV to go into Title I and just give us more money in Title I. However, given some of our continuous needs for social and emotional learning support, more needs and supports related to counseling services, more needs and supports needed for safe and healthy schools, we are wanting to now keep that allotment kind of as its own separate bucket to help support those areas I just mentioned. Whereas before, we were kind of just we weren't prioritizing those areas as much, and we were just kind of putting that all back into instruction. Well, we realize now, we're another year away from COVID, but we all know that many of the problems post-COVID are still in play. We're wanting to take this year as another opportunity to provide more wraparound services for those students who really do need them now that our ESSER money is no longer there to do that for us. And so we had the ESSER money. That was what was helping us support those students with those things. With the ESSER money going away, we didn't want those services to go away, so we're rerouting how Title IV works to kind of provide us with that same type of money support in those areas, particularly with our counselors. Because one of the goals this year is to help our counselors become more hands-on with the students as far as providing those support services. Not so much this school counseling, but in terms of like the school psychology counseling and really being able to help a student in terms of that one-on-one relationship and some of the tools that maybe our counselors don't come with because they're more academic. They're going to get that clinical and social and emotional services support training this year, which is going to be great because it's going to be K through 12, all counselors will get it. And so that will just help and provide better support to our social workers and our communities and schools, our staff. And everyone's aware of communities and schools, right? Okay. This is the first year where we can say all campuses now have a CIS staff member, which is great. They're awesome. They provide a lot of help. And just another stakeholder group that provides support to our students in that way. One thing that happened at the beginning of the year was the professional development plan was approved. If you'd like to look at it, you may do so. It's kind of boring, but it's got some good stuff in there. One thing, too, that comes from this committee is the district calendar committee. That was new last year. This committee works in tandem with that committee, and it's a back and forth approval process as far as how that calendar is going to get developed and ultimately approved by the school board. That work with that calendar committee will begin in October. And so once that begins, their work will kind of be reviewed and discussed in here and vice versa. And eventually when that calendar committee creates the calendars, this committee will get an opportunity to review, provide feedback and suggestions, kind of like how it worked last year. And hopefully that was a good experience last year. I can say really and truly that of the things that we've done, I have received more questions, feedback, and just kind of kudos on how that went. Not just from TM, but even other superintendents or other regions or districts in the state. I think the last person who reached out was in Fort Worth, wanting to know how we were doing the calendar committee here. And so because our stuff's all transparent on the website, you can search for it, you can access it. I make all of our information totally available. It's kind of interesting to see who's actually looking at our stuff. People are looking at our stuff, everyone. Like, it's really cool to hear a call from DFW Argyle ISD. They called the other day wanting to know how we did our calendar committee. I know Ms. Booker over here knows all about Argyle. Would you say they're a good district?
Yeah, they're really good.
I get the impression that they're pretty good.
Yeah, they're good. They're tiny.
Yeah. Kind of like us, but the north.
I have to go decorate a football locker.
Okay.
Is it okay if I go?
I like the inside voice too. You don't have to say anything, Ms. Griffin. Just.
I just didn't want to get up and walk out without
Yeah. I get it. I know when I'm like about to get the hook, and it's like 5:30 because technically our meetings are 4:30 to 6. I put 5:30 just because I was really interested in getting us out of here, which we will end in literally about 5 minutes. But not before I answer Ms. Ledesma's question.
I have to go decorate a locker too.
Who else has to go decorate? Say, I feel like I need to.
I'm just kidding.
I don't want to help them.
You're like me. I'm like, decorate, be in a meeting, and sit down and just kind of wait till it's over.
Oh, no, I'd rather be here, trust me.
Some more and wait it out.
It's your first time.
Yeah,
Take a
Not
picture.
exactly.
Remember the moment.
One thing I just want to make sure everyone knows is our district family engagement policy. Every campus has its own specific parent and family engagement policy. We also have one at the district level. Based on feedback already, we're going to continue with keeping our policy as is, but I just want to let you all know that this policy is available and it will also be looked at and reviewed at the end of the year when we get to that point. And you can kind of take a look at the ones over the years. By and large, they stay relatively the same. One thing I do want to mention before we leave is the DOI plan, because that is actually the next step for us as a committee. So this is going to be the first time in the district that amendments are being proposed to the plan that was originally approved in 2022. If you can believe it, if you were here at that time or part of that process, it seems like yesterday when we did that, but it's been a while since now that we've had that plan passed. You can see what was actually passed in the original plan. we had 6 flexible policies added to our plan. And you can see them here, starting with educator certifications. Here, for our amendments, we're wanting to add a little bit more to our flexible educator certifications with LOTE and fine arts. We're also wanting to possibly look at removing the student growth measure from T-test, so that T-test is only about the observation and nothing else, so that the focus of the growth measure now becomes on TIA instead, because those two may not be the same. And so rather than allowing a teacher to become completely overwhelmed with all the student growth data, we are wanting to reduce that burden by removing that from T-test and only allowing the growth measure to come from TIA. And then the last thing, which I believe our counselors are big champions of, we are also going to look at opting out of the 80-20 counselor rule. And that means not letting them like off the hook with what they're supposed to do, but again, removing the burden of the paperwork and the auditing and just the stress of possibly being out of compliance and what may happen as a result of being out of compliance. And knowing the current status of staffing, the current status of state funding, and just knowing where we are as a district and where everybody is as a state, it's a challenge to be able to do things the way they're intended to be done when you're not fully staffed the right way, or the state's not funding us the way it used to fund us anymore. And so this is one thing that's really impacted counselors, and is one thing that we will look at proposing to the board to see if they're okay with us looking at them in a more kind of holistic measure, and only taking snapshots of the 80-20 once a semester, rather than every week for the entire year. Because it's a lot of paperwork and time that counselors have to spend calendaring and coding and moving things over so that their 80 is 80 and their 20 is 20. And it's like, can we just work with our students? And so wanting to look at that, because again, they are pretty much overburdened with that paperwork, and just another opportunity to kind of remove that for them. That will all be done on Thursday, September 12th at the public meeting. So hopefully this committee will be there, because technically this is our DOI committee. And so even if you weren't part of the original plan, that's totally fine. The public meeting is going to be where these amendments will be written, they'll be ready to be reviewed, and we will review them as a committee, and you all will make the decision as far as which amendments will go forward to the board and which ones won't. Okay? And if we have anybody that would like to participate in that, they can come and provide public comment if they'd like to. So that will be the next step we take as a committee. That will happen on September 12th. Our next DEIC meeting will be September 26th. And that meeting, we will look at our DIP, our CNA for 24-25, and we will kind of review, finalize, and approve that. And that will just be the focus of that meeting. One thing I do want to leave you all with is A through F accountability ratings. I know, right? One thing in particular about this, if you can, it's like, that's as big as it gets, right? Okay. Can you even see that? I didn't think so. Let me try this.
I can just see the color. It's hard for the disabled because I can't.
There we go. Okay. So we have the district scorecard there. It'll be easier if you pull up on your own computer, and I'll try to do what I'm doing. Are these going to go away?
Zoom out and then use the plus and minus instead of.
Okay. Whoa, okay. Got to do this.
I feel like I'm at the eye doctor.
Do what?
I feel like I'm at the eye doctor.
Yeah, like just, hopefully you're covering one of your bad eyes so your good eye can see. So if you're curious and would like to look a little closer at what the projections would have been if the A through F accountability rating was not being denied once again at the legal level, because it's all tied up in the court system, and at that point no one really cares anymore, because it just kind of goes to die at that point. However, for those that would like to know what we would have ended up as, high school would have ended up with, and you can see all the calculations here, got some C's, got an A, a B, ooh, got a little D, but that's okay because it's the best of those. And then you can see how after everything shakes out, they end up with an 80, okay? I think ACC, they gained back their alternative accountability rating, which means now, instead of being rated on traditional accountability, this is like never happened to me. It's so weird. It's like it's either like all Zoom, no Zoom. I don't get it. There we go. They got an 84 right there. Middle school, I'm telling you guys, middle school's on fire. They've just been on fire for the last couple of years.
It's good to hear.
It's extremely good to hear. They're on 84. Being a former middle school principal in Region 5 in Bridge City, which is kind of near Beaumont, if you're familiar where Beaumont is in Beaumont, Texas, every middle school in that entire region was not higher than a 78 when I was there. And I was like 5 or 6 years ago. My first year there, my goal was to get us to a B. And through everything that we are currently doing now at the intermediate level, where we're targeting specific students and scheduling students very intentionally, I was able to move my campus from a 75 to an 80 in 1 year. So it was 1 year where we finally got a middle school in that region to a B. And I couldn't tell you like just what that meant for everybody just doing that, right? I never imagined even being able to like really do it, honestly, because it was such a challenge. But as far as like what we're doing here with our middle school, it's just blowing my mind that we're doing the things that we're doing and our kids performing the way they're performing at that level. It's truly incredible, the turnaround that campus has done and just the work that's being done over there. So if you haven't been over there or we're just to like learn a little bit more, definitely check out what's happening at the middle school. Some really great things are happening.
Amazing. The teachers are just
It's
great.
just unbelievable.
My son's in 6th grade and I was worried because he's struggling in 5th, but 6th grade, he's excelling. He has amazing teachers, so
Yeah.
yes, kudos to middle school.
It's like they captured the magic over there and they bottled it up and they're just drinking it and taking it every day. Because to be at an 84 with all the change and the new STAR 2.0 and everything being so much harder and the entire middle school totally dependent upon how they do on STAR, because that's all they have, that's absolutely incredible. Very, very, very excited for them. And then, of course, elementary, because primary doesn't get a rating, but because they're attached to the intermediate, they're also associated. You can see where we still have a little bit of work to do. But that's okay, because we're
10 points away. We're 10 points away.
everyone's aware of that. And so 73 doesn't sound too great, but then again, neither does a 63 or a 53 or a 43, which is what you're seeing across the state at the elementary level, because the STAR 2.0 and the testing and expectations are so much more challenging now. That test is really rocking those kids at that level.
The typing alone.
Yes, and just all the typing and all the post-COVID and all the things that we're having to go through, to me, that's a great place to be at because we know we can do better, but it's not to the point where a lot of the work is going to seem like we can't recover from it. We're going to bounce back very quickly from that one. And so when ratings officially become official next year, third time's the charm, right? We're going to see what we want to see there. So when it does get published, we're going to be very happy with that number. And so a lot of the work this year and the focus will be at the elementary level to try to help improve what's happening. And that work is already being done. Ms. Huerta is one of our instructional facilitators at the intermediate campus. Part of her work is to help us with that score. So, do you have anything you wanted to add to that?
No, just put me on the spot a little bit.
No way, no way.
Pressure was already there, now it's even more.
No way.
I'm excited. It's gonna go up. We're taking a lot of measures we're making a lot of changes, positive ones, I feel. And I think that with the teachers we have, I think we're taking this step in the right direction. So I'm excited.
So
Got a lot of
if
things
you
going
see Miss Stacy Lucas, make sure you say hello. Tell her she's doing an amazing job, and just whatever you can do to help her out.
Yeah, she needs that too. Yeah, she's a newbie, so she's needing that. Yeah.
So nothing like being challenged as a first-year principal, right? At the intermediate, but
Just
she's going
make
to
sure
be
we
great.
fit her crowns on straight.
Yep.
All the time. That's all we got to do.
Well, guys, that's pretty much it for today. Just like I said, really appreciate y'all being a part of this committee. Feel free to leave your binders behind. If you do want to take them, just please make sure you bring it back because, like I said, we'll be adding to those binders meeting by meeting. If nobody has any further questions, we can totally get out of here. and we can enjoy the rest of our day.